Welcome back, everybody, for another deep dive. This time we're going to take a look at CRISPR-Cas9. Probably a lot of you have heard about it already.
Yeah, definitely a hot topic.
Yeah, it's really, really fascinating, and I think the more we learn about it, the more fascinating it gets.
Yeah, definitely. A lot of potential with this technology.
So CRISPR-Cas9, what is it?
So CRISPR-Cas9 is essentially a gene editing tool,
Okay.
and it's actually derived from a bacterial defense system.
Mm.
Bacteria use it to fight off viruses. And what scientists have done is they've kind of hijacked this system and repurposed it to be able to edit genes, in any organism, really.
So hijack a bacterial defense system. That's so interesting. I never knew that bacteria had like an immune system. I always thought of it as kind of just like a blob.
Yeah, well, they're pretty sophisticated little organisms, and this is one of their defense mechanisms that's been really helpful for us in developing this technology.
So is this like that whole yogurt thing?
Not exactly. Probiotics are more about introducing beneficial bacteria into your gut.
Okay, Kai.
CRISPR is about actually going in and making precise changes to DNA sequences, so it's a very different type of technology.
So can you explain exactly how it works?
Sure. Imagine you have a pair of molecular scissors.
Okay.
That's what the Cas9 enzyme is. It can cut DNA at a very specific location.
And how does it know where to cut?
That's where the CRISPR part comes in. CRISPR stands for clustered, regularly interspaced, short palindromic repeats.
Catchy?
Yeah, it's a mouthful.
Yeah.
But basically what it is a guide RNA. It's like a GPS that guides the Cas9 scissors to the exact spot in the DNA that you want to edit.
Okay, so we got the scissors, we got the GPS. What happens next?
Once the Cas9 makes the cut, the cell's natural repair mechanisms kick in. Scientists can then use this repair process to either disrupt a gene, insert a new gene, or even just change a single letter in the DNA code.
So it's like having a molecular word processor.
Exactly. And the precision of CRISPR is remarkable. Think about it, we're targeting a specific sequence of letters within a vast genome, a sequence that might be only a few base pairs long.
It's pretty mind-blowing when you think about it that way. I mean, we're talking about editing the very essence of life.
Exactly. And that's what makes CRISPR so powerful and so exciting. The possibilities are really endless.
Well, let's talk about those possibilities then, because it seems like CRISPR has the potential to revolutionize so many different fields.
It really does. We're talking about curing genetic diseases, engineering disease-resistant crops, developing sustainable biofuels. It's incredible.
So let's start with medicine. What are some of the ways CRISPR is being used to treat diseases?
Well, one of the most promising areas is in the treatment of genetic disorders. Scientists have already used CRISPR to successfully treat sickle cell anemia in patients.
I remember reading about that. It's amazing.
They're literally correcting the faulty gene at its source, with some patients no longer needing blood transfusions.
That's a life-changing breakthrough. And it's not just sickle cell anemia, right? Researchers are working on CRISPR therapies for a whole range of genetic disorders.
Absolutely. We're talking about cystic fibrosis, muscular dystrophy, Huntington's disease, the list goes on. CRISPR offers hope for treating diseases that were once considered incurable.
It's incredible to think that we might be on the verge of a future where these debilitating diseases are a thing of the past. It's like something out of a science fiction movie.
Yeah, it really is. And it's not just about treating existing diseases. CRISPR also has the potential to prevent genetic diseases from being passed down to future generations.
You're talking about germline editing, right?
Exactly. While it's still a topic of intense ethical debate, germline editing, which involves modifying genes in embryos, could potentially eliminate inherited diseases like cystic fibrosis or Huntington's disease from the gene pool altogether.
So we're talking about potentially eradicating these diseases from future generations.
That's the idea. It's a bold concept, and one that raises significant ethical questions. Are we playing God by altering the human germline? What are the long-term consequences of such interventions? These are questions we need to grapple with as a society. There's no easy answer, but it's a conversation we must have as this technology advances.
It's a lot to unpack, but I think it's incredible that we even have the ability to have these conversations now. CRISPR is giving us tools that were once unimaginable. It's a whole new frontier of scientific exploration.
It really is. And it's not just limited to medicine either. CRISPR has the potential to revolutionize agriculture as well.
Oh yeah, I was just about to ask you about that. We've talked about curing diseases, but what about feeding the world? How can CRISPR help with that?
Well, one of the most promising applications of CRISPR in agriculture is in developing crops that are resistant to pests and diseases. Imagine crops that can withstand drought conditions or resist devastating plant viruses.
That could have huge implications for global food security, right? Especially in regions facing challenges like climate change and resource scarcity.
Absolutely. CRISPR could help us ensure a stable and sustainable food supply for a growing population.
And it's not just about quantity, is it? It's also about quality.
That's right. We can use CRISPR to enhance the nutritional content of crops as well. For example, we can increase the levels of vitamins, minerals, and even protein in staple crops like rice and wheat, improving the nutritional value of diets worldwide.
It's amazing to think about the impact this could have on global health and nutrition. I mean, we're talking about potentially ending malnutrition.
And let's not forget the environmental benefits. By engineering crops that are more resistant to pests, we can reduce our reliance on pesticides, which have harmful effects on ecosystems and human health.
Right. So it's a win-win situation, both for the environment and for human well-being. But let's not limit ourselves to just crops. What about other applications of CRISPR in the realm of food production?
One fascinating area is the development of cultured meat, also known as lab-grown meat.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I've heard about that. So no more factory farms.
Potentially. It's still early days, but the idea is to produce meat directly from animal cells without the need for traditional animal agriculture. CRISPR can be used to optimize the growth and characteristics of these cultured meat cells, potentially leading to a more sustainable and ethical way to produce meat.
So one day we might be enjoying a delicious steak that was grown in a lab rather than on a farm.
It might sound futuristic, but it's closer than you think. And that's the beauty of CRISPR. It's constantly pushing the boundaries of what's possible. We're seeing innovations in fields ranging from biomanufacturing to material science to even art and design.
It's almost like CRISPR is a universal tool with endless applications.
In a way, it is. And it's only going to become more versatile and powerful as the technology continues to evolve. It's definitely an exciting time to be following the world of CRISPR research, that's for sure.
Well, I'm glad you're here to guide us through it. So much to talk about.
Definitely.
Let's take a quick pause. We'll be back in a moment to talk more about CRISPR.
We're back and ready to dive even deeper into the fascinating world of CRISPR.
I feel like we've only just begun to scratch the surface.
We have. It's such a multifaceted topic with so many potential applications.
Right. And we've talked about the big picture, but I want to get into some specifics.
Sure. What are you curious about?
Well, we touched on personalized medicine earlier. I'd love to hear more about that.
Yeah, personalized medicine is really one of the most exciting frontiers in CRISPR research.
What does that actually look like in practice? How is CRISPR being used to create personalized treatments?
Well, imagine a future where your doctor can analyze your unique genetic makeup and then design a treatment plan tailored specifically to you.
Wow. So we're talking about moving beyond the one-size-fits-all approach to healthcare.
Exactly. CRISPR allows scientists to pinpoint the exact genes involved in a particular disease.
And then target those genes with therapies that are designed to correct the underlying genetic issue.
Precisely. It's a completely new way of thinking about medicine.
It's like having a personalized toolkit for repairing genetic errors.
That's a great analogy. And we're already seeing this approach being used to develop personalized cancer therapies.
Oh, how does that work?
Well, CRISPR can be used to engineer immune cells that can target and destroy cancer cells with incredible precision.
Wow, so instead of using broad-spectrum treatments like chemotherapy, which can have all sorts of nasty side effects, we can use CRISPR to go after cancer cells directly.
Exactly. It's about harnessing the power of gene editing to develop more effective and less invasive treatments.
That's amazing. So CRISPR is not just about treating existing diseases, it's also about preventing genetic diseases from being passed down to future generations, right?
You're exactly right. Germline editing is a very powerful concept, but also a very controversial one.
Right, because we're talking about altering the genes in embryos, which means those changes would be inherited by future generations.
Exactly. It's a profound decision with far-reaching implications.
So are we playing God by altering the human germline? Where do we draw the line?
Those are big questions, and there are no easy answers, but they're questions we need to be asking ourselves as a society.
Absolutely. It's a conversation that needs to involve scientists, ethicists, policymakers, and the public at large.
I completely agree. It's not a decision to be made lightly.
Okay, so let's shift gears for a moment and talk about another area where CRISPR has huge potential: agriculture.
Definitely. CRISPR has the potential to revolutionize the way we produce food.
We talked earlier about engineering crops that are resistant to pests and diseases.
Right. Imagine crops that can thrive in harsh environments or withstand attacks from insects or viruses.
This could be a game changer for global food security, especially as we face the challenges of climate change and a growing population.
Absolutely. CRISPR could help us ensure a stable and sustainable food supply for everyone.
And it's not just about quantity, it's also about quality.
Right. We can also use CRISPR to enhance the nutritional content of crops.
So we're talking about crops that are not only more resilient, but also more nutritious.
Exactly. We could boost levels of vitamins, minerals, and protein in staple crops, making a real difference in the fight against malnutrition.
And that's incredible. And on top of all that, we could reduce our reliance on pesticides by engineering crops that are naturally resistant to pests.
Right, which would have huge benefits for both the environment and human health.
So it's a win-win-win situation all around.
You got it. But that's not all. We're also seeing fascinating developments in the realm of cultured meat.
Ah, yes. Lab-grown meat. Tell me more about that.
Well, as you know, traditional animal agriculture has a significant environmental footprint.
Yeah, not to mention the ethical concerns.
Right, so scientists are exploring ways to produce meat directly from animal cells without the need for raising and slaughtering animals.
That sounds pretty futuristic.
It does, but it's becoming more and more of a reality. And CRISPR is playing a key role in this development.
How so?
Well, CRISPR can be used to optimize the growth and characteristics of these cultured meat cells, making the process more efficient and sustainable.
So one day we might be enjoying a burger made from meat that was grown in a lab rather than on a farm.
Exactly. And it wouldn't just be burgers. We're talking about all sorts of meat products, potentially even seafood.
Wow, that's mind-blowing. It seems like CRISPR is constantly pushing the boundaries of what's possible.
It really is.
Yeah.
And we've only just begun to explore its full potential. The next few years are going to be incredibly exciting.
I can't wait to see what the future holds. But for now, let's take a short break and come back to explore one final frontier of CRISPR: the potential to extend lifespan and redefine what it means to age. We're back and ready to wrap up our deep dive into the world of CRISPR-Cas9.
It's been quite a journey exploring the incredible potential of this technology.
Yeah, and I have to say, of all the amazing things we've talked about, the one that really blows my mind is the potential to extend lifespan.
I know, right? It's like something straight out of science fiction. But the science behind it is actually pretty fascinating.
So tell me, how could CRISPR potentially be used to combat aging?
Well, scientists have identified certain genetic pathways that play a key role in the aging process.
Okay, so like what kinds of pathways are we talking about?
Well, for example, there are genes that regulate cell repair, stress response, and even the length of telomeres.
Telomeres. Remind me what those are again.
Sure, telomeres are like protective caps on the ends of our chromosomes.
Oh, right, I remember. They kind of get shorter as we age, right?
Exactly. And that shortening is thought to be one of the factors that contributes to aging.
So is the idea that by targeting these genes with CRISPR, we could potentially slow down or even reverse the cellular damage that accumulates over time?
That's the idea. And there's already been some promising research in this area. Scientists have used CRISPR to extend the lifespan of certain organisms, like worms and mice.
Really? They've actually done that?
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. It suggests that similar approaches might be possible in humans someday.
Wow. So we could potentially live longer, healthier lives. I mean, that's incredible, but also kind of scary when you think about it.
Yeah, there are definitely a lot of ethical considerations to think about, and societal implications too. I mean, what happens if we can all live to be 150? What would that do to our planet?
Yeah, that's a good point. Overpopulation, resource scarcity, it would definitely create new challenges.
That would. And those are things we need to be thinking about now as we develop these technologies. It's not just about extending lifespan, it's about ensuring that those extra years are lived well and that everyone has the opportunity to benefit from these advancements.
Right. It's not just about living longer. It's about living better.
Exactly. It's a complex issue, but one that I think is incredibly important to discuss.
Well, I think this has been an incredibly insightful conversation. Thank you so much for sharing your expertise with us today.
My pleasure. It's been great talking to you about this fascinating topic.
And to our listeners, we hope you've enjoyed this deep dive into the world of CRISPR-Cas9. It's a technology with incredible potential to change our lives for the better, but it's also one that requires careful consideration and thoughtful discussion. Thanks for listening.